Well, hello there. Nice to see you again. Sorta. This is a podcast, after all, with zero video. So, welcome back to the DudeCast podcast, episode 3. Once again, I am your host, Norman Dexter. Thank you for joining me in this special edition, a morning edition of the DudeCast podcast, where instead of alcohol, because I am not a raging alcoholic, I have coffee this morning. So, why the random recording? Well, here we are, the day after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a good one, by the way. And, well, there's not much going on. It's Black Friday, and Black Friday during COVID, so I already didn't participate in the shenanigans of Black Friday bullshit, because I don't really need anything or want anything, so, why the hell would I go out during COVID on top of that? So, here I sit, and here I record. It's, these podcasts that I'm doing really are serving a utility for me. The first one I referred to is Screaming into the Void. And I've never really been one for journaling. It's not my thing. I don't feel like it doesn't feel like I'm talking to anybody but myself. But with these, I know people listen, even if it's just one or two people. And that gives it more worth. That gives it more value to me. Uh, if it's just a journal, nobody else reads it, nobody else sees it. It's just me, and it just feels there's no point to it for me. And so here I am. So any morning where I'm feeling particularly lonely or a need for socialization, this for whatever reason scratches that itch for me, and I like that because it keeps me off of things like Tinder, for instance. So I think that's actually a good segue to start with one of the first topics I wanted to mention here. It's funny throughout the week I'll keep this little journal with me. I just got done saying how I don't journal, but what I'll do is I'll think of interesting ideas or topics that I want to talk to talk about rather in the podcast. And I just keep it here in front of me and I basically just fill a page. And when I fill a page, that's when I talk about whatever comes to mind, whatever's on this list. And I basically continue screaming into the void and see who listens. But Tinder, I've mentioned it before. I mentioned the dumpster fire, that the state of affairs is in reference to online dating. But something I've really noticed, you're really in a good spot when you realize that you're bored of these dating sites. You're swiping or whatever, and you realize, well, I'm not even interested in this. It's just this mindless thing. When you realize that and you get bored of it and you go watch something else or do something else, uh, it's a good spot to be in because it means what you're craving. You start to realize what you're craving isn't a person. It's something to do. It's conversation. It's something to occupy your thoughts. Hence why, for instance, this morning when I was feeling lonely and just kind of wanted someone to talk to, uh, rather than going on one of these dating sites, I can talk to you guys on this podcast. And so it serves a very real purpose, and it's kind of cool. And so with that, I think it's worth mentioning that these dating apps are starting to become this obsolete thing, especially during times of COVID. We're finding other ways to go about scratching these itches or fulfilling these urges that we have for socialization. And for me, it looks like it's going to be this podcast, amongst other things. I have friends I can talk to and meet up with and so on, but, it's hard with Daddy DeWine and his lockdowns, and then COVID, and it's the holiday season, so you're getting together with family. So, it's a lot of back and forth of, do I socialize? Don't I socialize? Should I socialize? Shouldn't I socialize? Do I need to? Is that really what I want? So on and so forth. So I think it's a healthy thing, I mean, it's let's see. When dating apps become boring and when going out on dates feels like an obligation, you're at a good spot. That's the note that I left specifically on this subject. And that's true because I don't, I'll have friends say, hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Or what are you doing with this, that, or the other thing? And, tell them how I got work, or I don't got work, or I have this, I have that. Very often I find myself just not wanting to do anything. And then sometimes I will. Like this morning, I finished another season on a show I've been watching. I've been watching Sons of Anarchy. And, I finished the season. I'm like, all right, time for a break. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that in the last two podcasts too, is that when you finish binging a certain TV show and you finish a certain story arc or plot line, you kind of need a fucking break. It's a little bit too much, and, it's, you need a different stimulus, especially if you're just sitting on your ass the whole time, right? But, yeah. It's nice to have something new to go to, and that's what this podcast is. So, with that, let's see what else I have written down here. Oh, stream of consciousness, perfect. So, what does that mean? Stream of consciousness is what this podcast is all about, in terms of me spitting out my ass whatever comes to mind at any given point, and I don't care what I say on here. I come to whatever tangent or conclusion that I do, and I speak it into the void, and it's there. It's out there, and I don't care what people think about it. I don't care who hears it. I can scream fuck, shit, piss, and cum. It doesn't matter to me. People are like, well, aren't you afraid of employers finding out? I'm like, you know what? Employers should not give a flying fuck what you do with your free time. If they do, they are overbearing and a fucking problem. Unless you're going out spewing hate speech, racial slurs, and promoting violence or doing some other illegal shit, your employer shouldn't give a flying fuck what you're doing, because here's the thing. I'm recording what I'm doing, right? I'm giving my thoughts, I'm giving my viewpoints on things that I would otherwise be saying just to regular people. So all I'm doing is providing a platform and record of these same thoughts that would be spewed out to those around me either way. So what I'm doing is making my private thoughts and words public. Most people do this every day, and employers need to start to fucking understand that. You cannot filter people and expect them to lead a happy, fulfilling life. So to me, if I'm looking for a job, if I find a job and that employer says, well, we don't want you to act this way or talk this way, I'm going to tell them, shove it up your fucking asshole, because I am not changing for anybody. I'm not changing for a romantic partner. I am not changing for an employer. I am not changing for fucking anyone. I decide my viewpoints. I decide my principles, my values, and my self-worth. No one and no organization is going to tell me what any of those things are. Which is a perfect segue into the abysmal job market that 2020 has to offer. Because let me tell you, it's rough. I've mentioned before how bad things are and how work is rough in my industry of health and fitness, health and wellness, but I'm making do. But I had a conversation just yesterday with a friend of mine. She is applying for professorships. Well, professorship's not the right word. She's trying to become an instructor at a university. She has her master's like I do, but she works in an industry that is hurting like mine. So in the health and wellness industry, we're one of the first programs to get cut from when you have economic downturns, such as these COVID lockdowns, right? And so hers is in dance. And, well, let's face it, dance is not an essential employable thing in our society, right? It's not something that needs to be there. It's something that is, well, it's a sport, it's a luxury. It's an art, and it's amazing, and it's incredible, and I do not mean to discredit that, but, it's the same thing that could be said for health and wellness. But again, health and wellness, you would think that that's something that's important, which I include dance in, because guess what? That's activity, that's exercise, that's something to do that requires discipline, that involves dedicating yourself to. And you know what? That's good for you. That's good for your mental health and your physical health. And I think that those should be around. But the thing is, it's all about the money, man. It's all about the money. And they're the first to get cut. It's that extracurricular shit, right? It's not in their core values, which is fucking retarded if you ask me, because your health and your happiness should be in your fucking core values, including your bottom line. Fucking cocknozzle university and employment offices. So, if you can't tell, I have an axe to grind in this podcast with employers and higher education. Employers, I have currently, so I have an Indeed.com profile, and I've been putting out applications ever since July. I graduated with my master's in August, and my Indeed profile, it's all updated. I have various applications I've put out, and it tells me my active applications. And when one becomes inactive, meaning it has closed or they have gotten back to me via email or some other contact method, it takes it off automatically. Okay, so the number I'm about to tell you is my current active applications. I have 94 outgoing active job applications right now. Now, I have an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, and a master's degree with 10 years experience. You know what I hear from these employers when they do get back to me, which, by the way, maybe 1 out of 20, 1 out of 30 will actually respond to my application. You know what I hear? Sorry, we went with someone else who's a better fit. Or, sorry, you're a little too overqualified for this position. Translation for both of those is that they have to pay me too much money because of my credentials and my experience. So, let me get this straight. We are told throughout all of society, at least Western society, if you want to make it in this world, you got to go to school, you got to get good grades, you got to get your bachelor's degree, and then if you want to grind in and ensure that you are employed, that you are safe and you are secure and you are provided a job no matter what with full job security, get a master's on top of that bachelor's degree. And if you can, work throughout all of that in your industry or even volunteer if you can. That way you have work experience and you become invaluable to any potential employment opportunity. And so when you are done with your master's, you will be picked up, scooped up by any employer you want in your field. It is guaranteed, especially with a master's, especially with experience, especially with volunteer work. You will be guaranteed a job. Oh, really? Are you sure about that? Now, I understand. There's a big asterisk on this conversation because of COVID, because of lockdowns, and particularly my industry being hit by those. However, if I was not provided the unique opportunity to have my schooling bought and paid for, I would be completely and utterly drowning in debt right now. Because I have 3 degrees that cost $24,000 and change for the associates, somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 for the bachelor's, and then $34,000 range for the master's. Now, with some quick math, that is just under $140,000, $130,000 in debt. And just to give an FYI, the most money I've ever earned in a year after taxes is about $24,000 and change. Now, I've been working for 10 years, and there are living expenses, which means half of all my earnings over the last 10 years would be gone. So, let's say my highest wage year, that 24 and change, let's say I made that every year, which I did not. That was my highest every year, and that was 2019. Let's say I got that every year for 10 years, so it's about $240,000. More than half of that would be gone from this student debt alone, and that's not including living expenses, food, mortgage, any of that. So how, in the ever-loving fuck, are we supposed to survive on nothing? On nothing. Except entry-level fucking work. Now, if you think this makes me mad, imagine how it makes the people feel who are fucking drowning right now, who can't work because their jobs are just non-existent due to these lockdowns and COVID, or, just as bad, they can't get hired because they're, air quotes, overqualified. I can't imagine the frustration of doing everything right, getting those good grades, volunteering, working throughout your entire schooling career to make sure that you get out of school and you have that experience that you need to help you get that job, and maybe have a little bit of spending money to, store away in case of an emergency, such as lockdowns and COVID for, 6 months. But you could prepare for all of that. You could do everything right. Get straight A's, get your 4.0, even get some government assistance because of your 4.0 and your merit through a scholarship. But COVID's been going on for 9, 10 months. So hang on a second. If we're taught you need a 6-month emergency fund, I think that emergency fund has run out. And if you can't work or you're working minimum wage, guess what? You're kind of fucked right up the asshole now, aren't you? So, higher education is fucking bullshit. So, getting a job and needing a degree to get said job is fucking bullshit. You know what needs to happen? We need to take the time, turn the clock back, and look at one very simple change that occurred sometime in the last few decades. And that change is when school became a stand-in and eventual replacement for apprenticeships, internships, co-ops. The only internships and co-ops I see are in engineering and law and medicine. I don't see those anywhere else. There's clinicals, but here's the thing. Most of these all cost money. Clinicals, internships. The only one that you get paid for is co-ops. They're engineering schools. And I know somebody who graduated with their degree in electrical engineering and a minor in business a year and a half ago, before COVID. They are still, to this day, working as a barista at fucking Starbucks. In LA, mind you. So, you have this awesome degree, you got a co-op that you got paid great money for, and gave you experience, but you still don't have a job? You're still working as a motherfucking barista? Are you joking right now? When in the fuck is this problem going to be addressed? When is it going to be shown that if you have a degree, you're basically in the same place as somebody who doesn't? In fact, you're in a worse spot because you have all this crippling debt. I often think, if I never went to school, now given I know that my schooling has been paid for in full, and I don't have any of that debt. I own my house, I own my car, I don't have any debt to my name at all. But sometimes I think, how much time did I sacrifice in school that could have been spent working, building a business, building wealth and assets these past 10 years, as opposed to going to fucking school? Because let me tell you, everything I'm doing now, everything I've ever done in terms of work, in terms of building my savings and my wealth and my assets, and trying to get this place where I don't have any debt and I can start investing in myself, I've never needed a single degree for it. Not a master's, not a bachelor's, not an associate's. All I ever needed was to get a personal training certification for less than $300 and a weekend of time. That's all I ever needed. I can't even imagine how much money and time has been wasted or foregone because of all this fucking schooling that I spent so much of my time and sacrificed so much of my health over. The amount of sleep, the amount of over-caffeination, the amount of stress. Dude, I realize now, looking back, how fucked all of that was. Living on 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night because I had to work full-time and go to school 16, 18 or more credit hours every semester, and through the summer semesters, never taking time off so that my, what was supposed to be a 3-year program wouldn't turn into a 5-year program. It ended up turning into a 4-year program because Academic advisors are fucking awful at their job and will continually tell you bullshit lies just to get you out of their office rather than actually give you the accredited classes you need to graduate. Yeah, let me tell you, the amount of people I know who wasted an entire year of their money and time in school picking the wrong fucking classes because they had a bullshit cunty advisor tell them to take the wrong fucking classes is astounding to me. My roommate happened to him. An ex-girlfriend I had happened to her, and her entire class also happened to me. Happened to me because I said I can take these classes all at once, right? Like, yeah, of course you can. No, you can't. You have to take these ones first to get access to the other ones. You can't take those at the same time. I said, oh, great. Thanks for adding an entire year to my tenure here. I love it. It's awesome. Appreciate that. You lying, cock-sucking, motherfucking cunts. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm very passionate and jaded about how shit higher education is. And I had a good experience, for the most part. Oh, gotta calm down. It's supposed to be therapeutic, but I'm getting it out, right? It's that screaming therapy or something, I don't know. Anyhow, higher education is bullshit, and the job market is abysmal. I think I'll stop there. Ah. Boy, oh boy. What else we got? What is going on November 27th, 2020? Well, it's Black Friday, and I'm sure there's going to be stories all over the news about how people aren't doing shit because of COVID, or how people are doing too much shit in spite of COVID. But what else? Oh, this is a good one. So, there's a show on Hulu right now. I think it's called Teacher. Now, I didn't watch it, even though the actress that plays the teacher is the girl who plays Zoe from the first season of House of Cards, and I really like her. I think she's great. But it's a show about a teacher, female teacher, who falls in love with a male underage student. Now, I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan did a joke in his last special called, I want to say it was Strange Times, and talks about how a female police officer went undercover and busted a 17-year-old kid for marijuana when she asked him to get her some drugs so they could smoke weed or whatever, right? Now, sounds like entrapment to me, but here's the thing. The story Joe is talking about was in Florida, and the kid was caught, and I don't know if he was fined or went to jail or whatever, but Joe talks about how no one really gives a shit because he's a guy. No, he's a minor, but he's a guy. 17, no one cares. No one gives a fuck. Put him in jail, who gives a shit? Life ruined, who cares? But the point Joe makes in his joke, which you should watch his special, by the way, it's fantastic. The point he makes is, if it was reversed, if it was a grown-ass man throwing dick at 17-year-old girls to try and get them to, buy some drugs for him, they would light that motherfucker on fire in the streets, right? So, building off of that train of thought, this show, Teacher, is about a woman taking advantage of an underage man. A boy, in fact. So let's reverse that. What if it was a male teacher, a man, a grown-ass man, trying to be with an underage girl? Don't think this show would be all that popular anymore now, would it? It just boggles me how selective this whole cancel culture thing can be. I mentioned Amber Heard's cunty ass in my last podcast, and how it's just amazing how turns out she's the worst kind of human. Not only was she lying about being a victim, but in fact she was the abuser posing as the victim, which, there are a few things in this world that you can be that are worse than that. Like, murderers aren't that bad in a lot of cases, And it's incredible how evil that is. And so we have this situation where you basically have, as a form of entertainment, solicitation of underage boys, in this case, And everyone's like, oh, it's a good show. And I'm like, what? What the fuck do you mean? I think it's a little fucked up. Now, here's the thing. If they made an identical show where the roles were reversed for a man doing this with a girl, and they both aired, and they were both good stories, they were both well written, whatever, and no one cared, all right, cool. We can agree that this is a work of fiction. It's not real, it doesn't promote anything, but it does happen, and this is a depiction of when that happens. A very real depiction of when that happens. It's very reminiscent, or not reminiscent, it's very good at portraying the fact that this is probably what it would look like, this is probably what the story would, I guess, come to light as after the fact, right? That would be fine. I don't blame the actors and the actresses involved in this show. I don't hate the show. I've never watched the show, so I can't really comment. What I'm commenting on is the fact that if the roles were reversed, people would be up in fucking arms. I mean, for Christ's sake, they tried to cancel Baby Yoda a week ago for eating some imaginary eggs in an imaginary universe, committing an imaginary genocide. Oh, wait, it wasn't a genocide because he didn't eat all the fucking eggs. It was meant to be a comic relief throughout the episode. And it's fucking ridiculous. These people need to get a fucking life. So if you're wondering, what am I mad at here? What am I upset about? I'm upset that when shit just happens to coincide with what you think is right or wrong, irregardless of the double standard, pisses me off. I want you to be fair in your judgment of things. If it's one way that you don't like, then you should also not like it when it happens in the opposite scenario, when the situation is reversed. That's how it should be, because guess what? That's what is equal. That is equity. That is equal rights and opportunity, equal treatment for all. And that's what we all want. We all want that with Black Lives Matter, with LGBTQ plus community. We all want to be treated exactly the same. So if you're outraged on one thing, maybe, just maybe, think about whether or not you'd be outraged if the reverse happened. And if the answer is yes, then probably you should be upset. But if the answer is no, maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't be so upset. So, something to think about. Yeah. So cancel culture, teacher's fucking a little boy. That's fun stuff, right? I talked about trauma in the last episode, and I heard a quote. So Joe Rogan had Willie D from the Ghetto Boys on his podcast recently, and I had no idea who the Ghetto Boys was. I think it was in the 80s or 90s when they started. Al Gore's wife wanted to fucking stop cursing in music or something. It was going up against them and a few others. And Willie D said something pretty cool. And, again, this isn't a fucking motivational self-help podcast. This is just something I thought was nice to hear. But he said, quote, "Your past doesn't define you. It refines you." End quote. And that was Willie D from Ghetto Boys. So what he's getting at is something that can happen. It's not something that does happen. See, your past can define you if you let it. And you live your entire life based on your past mistakes, resentment, and regret, amongst other things. And you can let yourself do that. You can fall into that trap. Or you can make all those mistakes, all those regrets. You can turn them into something valuable, something to learn from, lessons. And that is how it can refine you. You can make sure that if you made the mistake once, you will not make it again. We see this most relatably in dating. But you can also see this in business, in school, in how you study, for instance. Or you can see this in how you spend money, whether or not you should go out drinking, whether or not you should drink and drive, whether or not you should spend all of your money on weed, whether or not you should get a PS5 or the new Xbox. Let me tell you, if an Xbox or a PlayStation costs an amount where that number is higher than your credit score, I got news for you. You don't need it. Okay? There's your financial advice for the day. But my point being, what happened to you in the past is in the past. And you should not pass judgment on yourself for that. What happened to you on your worst day does not define you. What happened to you on your best day does not define you, but they do afford the opportunity for you to refine who you are. It's up to you to figure out whether or not you learn from it or you stay in the exact same place, stagnant and stuck, frozen in time as the same person you were all those years ago. This is why I see so many people acting like fucking high schoolers in their mid-50s on Facebook. God. I wish, if nothing else, the people who listen to this podcast, I hope they can just get themselves out of those kinds of holes, because there is nothing more sad and depressing than somebody who is acting exactly the same now as they did when they were 18 years old, whether they're 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 80. If you're acting the same way you were when you were a teenager, something went very wrong and you did not take accountability for what you did. And that doesn't mean you did something terrible. It just means that you never learned from the mistakes that you made, because nobody's perfect. I don't care how great you are or how great you think you are. You fucked up. You hurt someone. You made a decision that got you hurt. It's happened to all of us. And the sooner you can admit that, the sooner you take responsibility for that, the sooner you can move on with your fucking life and become something better. I don't know what that looks like, and neither do you. But I can tell you one thing, you'll have a better quality of life for it. And so I think, just maybe, it's worth looking into. It feels good to go on about these subjects, because it forces me to take a look at myself and how they all make specific reference to the particular circumstances and situations in my own life. I mentioned earlier how the stream of consciousness that I share in these, I don't give a fuck who hears it. I mentioned in my last podcast near the end about a friend that I had where I fucked her over. And maybe she hears it, maybe she doesn't. And how I felt, I resent myself for fucking her over, and I hope she knows that I care for her, I love her, and I'm apologetic for doing what I did. Now, it wasn't something terrible, but I let her down, and you always feel bad about that. And in the other case, I was mentioning the person who I refer to as the one that got away. Again, she could hear this. That'd be fine. I hope she realizes, in one way or another, maybe it's hearing this podcast, maybe it's from me in person, but what I want her to realize is that I care for her. And, it's going to be her decision whether or not I care for her as a friend or as a romantic partner. And I don't care who knows, because I don't like secrets, I don't like lying, I don't like keeping things to myself. I'll never understand how people can have secret relationships with others. They have a secret side piece, if you will, a secret girlfriend, secret marriage, whatever. It's too much. It's too much on your fucking heart, man. I don't know how people can do that. It's so much work too. The risk reward situation there is fucked. You have so much risk of being found out if you're doing something like that. And not only do you lose everything if you are found out, you risk losing all of what you have with this person or these persons. But your reward is that you get two people that you're constantly having to work at lying at, so you're not even being authentic with them. So not only do you reduce the quality of your relationships with these individuals that you're sharing your time with, inauthentically. But you can't even enjoy it the way you would if it was just you and one person. And maybe you're a sociopath, maybe you're a psychopath, maybe you're a narcissist, and you don't care and it's fine. You know what? There are people like that that are out there. And if that's how you live your life, then so be it. Just know it's going to come crashing down because we all make mistakes. No matter how good or bad you are, you will always fuck it up. And this is why I prefer honesty. It's also why people refer to me as an asshole, or as I say, a cunt for short. Because I always tell it like it is. I am always telling the truth. I am always brutally honest, which is why I roast so many of my friends. And I mean it with love, I promise. But my point is simple. If you are honest and truthful, always and forever, and if you keep nothing a secret, you will lead a much, much better life. Stress-free, not a care in the world. Now, you may want to filter when you provide certain truths. For instance, if someone's grandmother dies, you don't want to say, hey, by the way, I'm thinking about breaking up because I want to go fuck some young poo-tang. You might want to wait until the person's done grieving the loss of their loved one before you tell them, hey, I'm thinking about breaking things off because I'm not done with my fuck bunny stage. Or whatever it may be. The point is, you put stuff out there and you do it in a way that is truthful and honest, and you might get some blowback. But the thing is, what can they really fault you for telling people for expressing how you feel? Excuse me, for expressing how you feel, for just communicating what your thought process is? No, they really can't. Now, you might lose some friends over this because there are a lot of people who don't like the truth, who don't like honesty, and they want to be told what they want to hear. But hey, that's not somebody you want around. You want somebody who's going to give you the non-sugar-coated truth. They aren't going to feed you a line of bullshit. That's what matters. That's what's valuable. That's what provides worth. And that's what provides merit to who your real friends are. Those who are not going to bullshit you and will continue to tell you the truth and give you that hard truth when you need it especially. This is particularly important in dating because if you don't have those kinds of friends, who the fuck is going to offer you the alternative perspective? You need to see red flags when you're blindly in love with someone, but if you have a few friends who know what to look for and offer a different viewpoint, they might see, hey, by the way, this is a red flag, that's a red flag, you should fucking run. Cannot have confirmation bias in real life. You can't even have it in fucking studies and scholarly articles. You can't have them ever. Confirmation bias is a problem. You should always be challenging your beliefs and your values and your principles. Why? Because if you don't challenge them, one day it's going to be forced upon you that you have to look at this thing that you believe in, that you value, that defines your identity and your worth, and you're going to have to look at that, and then you're going to be forced into the question of, is this really what I believe? Is this who I am? And if you've never had to do that before, it will fucking break you. And guess what? I've been there. I've done that. I've had my entire identity shattered. Sacrificed all of who I was to be with a woman who I thought was going to be my wife someday, the mother of my kids, my one and only. And she up and left, leaving me with nothing. And I had to pick up the pieces, and I had to figure it out. You should always be challenging the status quo. Always. Because if you're not, one day, something or someone is going to challenge it for you. And if you've never been challenged before, you will break under that pressure. And in some cases, you'll break in a way that you cannot be put back together. Humpty Dumpty ain't got shit on this. So having friends around who don't bullshit you, they always give you the unsugar-coated truth. That is one of the best support networks you can have. Because a system like that keeps you honest. A system like that keeps you quite familiar with pain and change. And then, when the universe thrusts that pain and change upon you, you're like, oh, okay, here this is. I got this. And you don't break under that pressure. It's really important. And, let me tell you, it's really fucking fun, too. Because when you can take the shit, if you can take the pain, the suffering, the misery, the depression, the anxiety, the panic, the suicidal thoughts, if you can take all of that, all the change, the despair, all of that, if you can handle that, well, if you don't laugh, you have to cry, right? So, all that misery, all that pain and suffering can turn you into a fucking hilarious person. And not only do you become funny, but because you're funny, you become fun to be around. You become more attractive as a person. People want to be with you. You're funny. You're entertaining. You are a good time for all those around you. And that makes all the difference in the world, my friends. Comedy is more than just something you do in your free time. Comedy is healing for the fucking soul. Comedy is essential. You don't hang out with people who don't make you laugh. You don't spend time with people you're not chuckling and giggling with. You need to be funny to enjoy your life. You really do. Otherwise, you're going to end up not having a great time, and the people around you are going to end up not wanting to be around you. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be a stand-up comedian to be happy in life. In fact, there are a lot of stand-up comedians who are fucking depressed and suicidal. But let me tell you, comedy is their way of connecting with people and coping with that. So it works both ways. You can be funny to cope with your problems, or you can have had problems and comedy develops because of those problems. Because let's face it, if you're not laughing, you're definitely crying. That's how this shit goes. And crying's good. You need to cry. It's good for you. I don't care how manly you are or how strong of an independent woman you are. Everyone cries, and everyone should every now and then. But I gotta say, the older I get, the more jaded I become, the harder it is for me to cry. But every now and then I hear just the right song when I'm in that very particular mood, and holy shit do I just ugly cry right there in my car. But it's a good feeling. It's refreshing. I love it. And you should appreciate that. You know? It's one of those things where you're just like, hello, darkness, my old friend. I see you've come to speak with me again. Pretty sure that's not the words, but that's how I see it. The Sound of Silence. Good song. Great song. Anyway. You should really get to know your darker side. Because it's like a mirror. It's how you can reflect on who you really are. And if you can look into the abyss and see yourself, you get to see what you're best at and what you're worst at. And the cool thing is, if you can see both extremes, you can figure out everything in between. And you become much more aware of who you are, what you want, and what you're looking for in life. And that's a really important aspect to consider. The problem with self-help, the problem with Tony Robbins, the problem with Gary Vaynerchuk is that they tell you these little things you should be doing and how to act, but no one can tell you how you can reflect on yourself and see who you really are. The only person that can get to know you and show you how to really know yourself is yourself. And that's where the darkness comes in. The darkness is your teacher. The darkness is your mentor. The darkness is your friend. When you're having those suicidal thoughts with yourself, talk back to them. Not out loud. We're not talking about actual crazy people here, okay? If you're schizophrenic, get help. get some pills. You're going to need it. My point is, when you have those suicidal thoughts, question them. Why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she might be listening to this, she might not. But she was telling me how every day, she has these suicidal thoughts. Now, this particular person has beaten cancer 4 fucking times in her life. 4 times she beat cancer. And when I say she beat cancer, I don't mean like stage 1 breast cancer or stage 1 this, stage 1 that. No. When she was born and was very little, she had stage 2 leukemia. When she was in middle school, she had stage 4 leukemia. When she was in her late teens, early 20s, she had cervical cancer. And then just this past year, stage 2 leukemia came back. But when it did, and she told me, I said, oh, just stage 2? Fuck is that? That's nothing. And we laughed about it. You know why? Because she did beat it. It was nothing. She had stage 4 leukemia and survived. To this day, she is kicking ass, but remains depressed, usually in constant pain, and has a lot of suicidal thoughts. And I asked her, I said, well, why? What do you think that is? Why is that? Because she is a person of faith. And I said, God doesn't put you here to go through all of that to just have you kill yourself. So there's a reason for you to be here. And she goes, yeah, I know I'm of faith, but like, that can only go so far. And I'm not all that religious, but I know people who are, and I know that that is something that anchors them. But even when that's not enough, what keeps them around? Family, friends, whatever. So I asked her, I said, hey, so, what are your friendships like? She goes, well, I can't really be myself. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, if I act out who I really am, if I really express myself, they'll lock me up. I said, what in the actual fuck are you talking about? She goes, I can't ever tell people how I really feel. I'm like, well, you tell me how you feel all the time and you never shut the fuck up. And she laughed and said, yeah, but that's you. You're different. I'm like, okay, I'm your friend. Why don't you have other friends like that? She goes, well, I have one. You and her, you guys know how I am. I'm like, okay. And so when you have these people in your life that say they care for you, what do you think? She goes, oh, I don't believe them. I'm like, well, why don't you believe them? She goes, I don't know. I just don't. Well, you care when I tell you that I care for you, right? She goes, well, yeah, of course. It always helps. That's why I come to you when I'm feeling like extra shit. I'm like, well, what's the difference between me and the rest of your friends? She goes, I don't know what. I said, they don't know who you are. You haven't shown them who you are. You haven't expressed who you are to these people in your life. So why the fuck would you believe them when they tell you that they care about you, that they love you, that they never want anything but wonderful things to happen to you? No wonder you don't fucking believe them, because they don't know who the fuck you are, and you think they're full of shit. And she goes, oh my God. How the fuck did you just have this breakthrough with me just now, when I've been going to therapy on and off my whole life, and they never gave me shit? To which I said, very simply, I understand the darkness you're feeling. It's different for every person. It's relative to your experience. But I understand that no amount of good, no amount of amazing, wonderful, incredible love and caring, and no amount of good can suppress or even get rid of or even suppress the darkness. The darkness is always there, and you have to accept it for what it is. And I told her, I said, I know for a fact that you could end your life in 5 minutes, or in 50 years, or any time in between. I know that at any point you may take your life, and that I will have lost you. But here's what I also know. I know I was lucky enough to know and love you for any amount of time during my lifetime and yours. That we were lucky enough to exist during the same time frame, and that before you took your life, I was lucky enough to have spent time with you. And that when I go to your funeral, whether it's in 5 minutes or in 50 years, I will go there with a smile on my face, with love in my heart, knowing that I was lucky enough to know and care for you. And then she cried, and I made another inappropriate joke that I cannot currently recall. But the point being, you cannot just tell someone out of suicide. You cannot just express to them some golden ticket that makes the suicidal thoughts and the depression go away. That's not how this shit works. If you're lucky, you'll get a pill that stabilizes your hormones and the chemicals in your brain that make you feel the big sad. But oftentimes, the pills don't work. Oftentimes, the coping mechanisms just suppress it. Oftentimes, the therapy just suppresses it. What you need is to be accepting of the darkness yourself and to know people who accept your darkness. Because then, no matter how much time you have left, maybe you will take your own life one day. Maybe you won't. It's hard to say. No one can see the future, and you don't know if one day you're just going to wake up and you just can't take it anymore. You don't know that. Nobody does. Not me, not you, not anybody. And so if you have yourself and people in your life who accept your darkness, who know you, who really know you, who you don't have to act around, who you're just yourself around, if you can do that, then it doesn't matter if you're here for 20 years or for 100. You will have lived a life with fulfilling connection between you and yourself and you and those around you. And that is a life well lived. I think that to be objectively true. I believe that if you can do that, if you can accept your darkness and you find people who also can accept your darkness and who you are, I believe that regardless of whether or not you ever take your own life or lose your life, it is a life well lived. You cannot be positive all the time. No one can be. That is a bullshit sentiment that needs to be stripped away. Because people who say, just think positive, when you are thinking of taking your own fucking life, those people need to be smacked upside the fucking head and shown a rude awakening that life is not that easy. It is not black and white. There is a lot of gray. And that's what being depressed is like. A lot of gray. So hopefully that offers you a very particular perspective on how you see your friends and how you see yourself. And understand that if you're depressed, if you are traumatized, if you have PTSD, if you have anxiety, if you have whatever your obstacle, whatever your issue, whatever it is you are working through or dealing with, just understand two things. One, you are never someone or something to be dealt with. Never. And if somebody says that you are hard to deal with, something to deal with, no. There is no to deal with. You are somebody to be cared for and loved by others and yourself. Even when you're broken and fucked up, when your life and your spirit are shattered to pieces, when your physical, emotional, and mental health are in the shitter, you still deserve that love from yourself and others. You are never something to be dealt with. That's number one. Number two, understand that there is nothing wrong with you. To be broken is not to be wrong. To be broken means it is a unique situation where something in you has broken. If you break a glass, if you break a coffee pot, if you break anything, it will always break in a different way. That's physics, bitch. When shit breaks, it always breaks in a particularly unique pattern. So when you break, it breaks in a very particular way. One that only fits you. And when you break that way, that's who you are now. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. It is a natural progression of life for something to break you. We are all broken in some way or another. Accept that you are broken. It's okay. You are not something to be dealt with. You are not someone to deal with. No. You're a person who deserves love and acceptance, no matter who you are. Except pedophiles. Fuck them. Kill them. Fucking Negan their ass with the fucking baseball bat with the fucking wires and shit. Fuck pedophiles. They can just, that teacher in that fucking show, fuck that bitch. There's your inappropriately timed humor. Gotta love it. But hey, when you're talking about this kind of dark shit, you gotta throw in some comedy, right? Fuck pedophiles. Boom, there you go. Something we can all agree on, right? The pedos can die. Gotta love it. Anyway, hopefully that last tangent, that last stream of consciousness is something that you all find useful. And I know it was long, but there were a lot of real life experiences that I had in there that I think offer a very, very unique perspective that I think is invaluable for people to take into consideration. I don't consider myself an expert in really much at all. Even the stuff that, some people would consider me an expert in, like the health and fitness shit I mentioned. I don't like that word. I don't like being an expert in anything because I'm always learning new shit. And we all are. So, don't take anything I say as law, please, because, it's just like you got somebody as successful and as famous as Joe Rogan. He always says, I'm a moron. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And, it's a cop-out. It's self-deprecating. It's what we all do. And I do the same thing. I suck at taking compliments. I immediately downplay or self-deprecate as soon as somebody pays me a compliment. That's how it goes. But I like it that way because it keeps me humble and it keeps a certain amount of humility about me. It's the same thing with this podcast. I'm not saying anything is fact. I give my own personal viewpoints, perspectives, and beliefs. And maybe it can help you. Maybe you can, bring value into your own life through the bullshit that I spew out this fucking mouth of mine. But hey, if I don't, I don't. But if I do, great. The point of this really is self-fulfilling. It's more of, like I said, an open journal to whoever will read it. I'm not trying to really help anybody. I mean, I'd like to. That'd be great. But I have no idea if these ramblings will or will not help people. I just know that these podcasts are fun. They make me feel good. The last couple have been a little bit more serious than the first one. The first one was pretty much the ramblings of a crazy person, and a lot more comedy than a lot more what I want this podcast to be. I want it to be funny. I want it to be comedic, but problem with comedy is that sometimes it comes from a dark place. And to me, that's the best comedy. But sometimes you got to work out the material to make it funny. And maybe, just maybe, these last two podcasts can help me do that. But the idea remains that I just want to get some stuff off my chest and put it out there. That's about it. I love doing this. It's something I've wanted to do for years. And there are a lot of people I'd like to do it with. But, we got busy lives right now. And I would love to have guests. I would love to have other people on. So if you're interested, just let me know. Hit me up. I always post my social medias in the description of the YouTube videos where I post these. So if you're interested in chatting me up, asking me questions and so on, great. And if you guys want to ask me questions, so I can do an AMA where at the end of each episode I can, answer said questions or just go off on my own little tangents based on your questions, I can do that too. So if you like that, throw in a comment on the YouTube video. Send me a message on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. I barely use Twitter, but I'll get the notifications. So if you follow me on any of those platforms, well, you can talk to me. I definitely don't have a lot of followers, so right now it's manageable. If it gets to the point where it's not manageable, well, I'll figure that out. Maybe I'll make a Patreon or something, but I'd love to talk to you guys. I'd love to chat with you. If you have questions or maybe something I spouted out my fucking mouth here is helpful to you. Anything and everything, if you're chatting me up, I'm happy, so any and all interactions are good ones. even if you're a troll trying to ruin my day. Still be funny for me. So, with that, we're approaching the hour, and I'm happy with this. This was my first morning podcast, so I have coffee instead of alcohol, and I'm glad that I don't have to be somewhat tipsy or drunk to go through one of these solo bitches. So that's definitely it's definitely good news. As far as when I'll be releasing these things, there is no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just kind of doing it whenever right now. Maybe in the new year, I will grind it down to more of a consistent schedule. Maybe like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I don't know. But I do know I'm going to try to keep them an hour. If I have a guest, maybe longer. If I do AMAs, maybe I'll add 15 minutes at the end of the hour. I don't know. But I'm just kind of releasing them as I feel like right now. And, the whole idea of this podcast is to just kind of do a stream of consciousness and talk about whatever the fuck is on my mind as it happens. So maybe I'll keep the random schedule. Who knows? But until then, I've been Norman. And this is the DudeCast Podcast, Episode 3. Thanks for listening. See you guys next time. Finger guns. Boom, bitch.